Yeah, he looks like a piece of shit for bullying a young girl who was there on her own free will. This is not a person who was a defendant. This wasn't a person who needed to be scared straight like a fucking reality TV character. To Dr. Greg's part point about the spectacle, this is abhorrent, unconscionable behavior. It is symptomatic of the way, or it is indicative of the way that Black girls are over policed or over criminalized, are adultified in a way that's so harmful. And to see her mother break down in tears, I'm sure this young girl is traumatized. He put her through an entire humiliation ritual, having her classmates vote on whether or not they should show mercy to her and send her to jail for what? He talked about her having an attitude. You have the fucked up, hubristic attitude that's abusive and a bully to abuse this girl who was in your courtroom to learn, but because of her life circumstances, maybe didn't have the focus that you felt like she should have had. Instead of exercising compassion and empathy and understanding, you wanted to exert your authority over a helpless child, because this is still a child that we are talking about. And so he is unfit to serve, because if this is how he would treat an innocent person, a person who is not there for any crime, for any kind of bad behavior, if this is how he would treat that person, then you know he cannot be impartial towards a person who is in front of his court, who's supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. So this is disgusting. And even upon reflection, he doubled down. He said he didn't do anything wrong. You have to teach these kids. This is not about these kids. This is about you, sir, and your up attitude, and you thinking that you can get away with whatever the hell you want to get away with. So it's not enough to just remove him. He needs to be kicked the out of the judiciary entirely. And he deserves to beg and plead for her mercy and for her apology. He has no business mentoring her. How ridiculous it is for him to say he wants to mentor her. Mentor her for what? On how to be a depraved asshole? I don't think so. So this is one of the most infuriating things that I've seen in a very long time. I hope that this girl and her family, I hope they have a GoFundMe that we can help get her secure housing. She's an excellent student, according to her mother. She's doing the right thing. And guess what? Even if you're having a bad day, even if you aren't a perfect student, even if you aren't a perfect citizen, you do not deserve to be abused and humiliated by a person who has authority over you, and certainly not in front of a group of your peers and on YouTube.
It would have been really nice, or I think beneficial for all of us to be able to hear the back and forth. I think that's one thing that probably was avoided. I don't think there's no sound bites on the actual back and forth that kind of give us the brunt or the details of how the judge may have been triggered into reacting like he reacted. But I believe that if minors understand from a young age that there are consequences for showing a lack of respect for officials, being cavalier or behaving nonchalant in serious situations, they probably won't be shocked by the outcomes of doing the wrong thing when they grow up into an adult age. When I remember when I was younger, I didn't realize how serious some of the wrong things I was doing, how serious they were until I was old enough to pay the price for them. Now, now that I'm not a judge. I don't want to be one, but if I was trusted to be a judge, I would hope that the people who put me there would trust, that any power I flex or consequence I impose is just, and in the line, and it's in line with the law. Like, he was put there by the people, and it looked like people took him down. It appears because he was being harsh to a minor. I believe all those kids in that courtroom was at an age where they were able to understand the seriousness of being in a courtroom. And what could potentially happen if they acted like they didn't care. I see another thing. Whenever I played the second video, I see that it seemed like everybody leaning hard on the parents' personal situation as a single mom, which predisposes a child to being sleepy during the day. And instead of, making this whole thing a lesson for a judge, I think it's important to make this lesson for the parent, who made whatever choices that disenfranchised the child in the first place. So it all sounds like another way to avoid accountability. because I believe the child will most definitely be tired again and again during the day. And if the focus don't shift from the judge's behavior, this kind of thing is going to, be repeated. And I'll let somebody else talk.
Go ahead, invite you on mute.
Sweetie, I got a question for you. Say Yvette Carnell go meet with Kamala Harris. And she tells her, of course, I'm not going to give cash payments for reparations. I don't think that's a viable option. And Yvette Carnell smacks her teeth. Do you think Kamala Harris has the right at that point to say, I don't like your attitude? Yeah. And then if she smacks her teeth again, lock her up?
Does she have the power to do that?
Does she have the right? Would that be the right thing to do?
What are we talking about? What, they're having a conversation?
Yeah, so
is Kamala Harris in a position of officiating something like a judge, and she's being openly disrespectful in that manner? What are we talking about? Are they just having a conversation?
So she's acting in
just having a conversation.
So it's like echoing. So she's operating in the capacity of being the vice president of the United States, of a much higher position than the judge.
And you saying that Yvette Carnell just sucks her teeth?
Yeah, when she tells her something that you and I would feel was disrespectful, but maybe Kamala Harris would not feel was disrespectful, and she said, "Yeah," or she just what does that? Do you think that she deserves to be reprimanded? And then if she does it again, like you just I felt what you did was disrespectful. Should she be able to lock her up at that point?
I don't think that's the same thing as this situation.
Well, it's not it's not apples to apples, but what I'm talking about is like somebody in a power dynamic being upset with the way you respond to something and then going above and beyond.
Well, I think for that, say for instance, she does suck her teeth, right? And she smacks her lips at Kamala Harris. And then Kamala Harris kicks her out the room and says, "You are not allowed in here to ask me any more questions or anything like that." Or she outright ignores Yvette Carnell. Yvette Carnell also understands that that's not how you speak to a politician. She wouldn't talk to Donald Trump like that. She wouldn't talk to Kamala Harris like that. If she was given the space in that room, I would assume that she would approach it dutifully. So, but if she did, I wouldn't be upset if Kamala Harris completely said, "Look, I don't want to deal with you anymore. You have no right to be in this courtroom and in this space anymore." However, it's different when you're in the courtroom because one of the biggest important things to judges is to respect the room, respect the courtroom. And they hold people in contempt all the time who disrespect the courtroom. So Bruiser did say something interesting. He said, "I would have loved to hear what the back and forth between them two." And I think they purposely left that out because you heard that after she got dressed out, all of a sudden the cameras on, see everything. But if you're the news and you're trying to make the judge look bad, you're not going to add in a part where she was talking back and forth with the judge and what she may or may not have said.
Or maybe she's a minor. They can't.
Yeah, she is a minor. But Sweeney, the main reason I asked you that because there was an interview with Kamala Harris where she was saying, "You don't understand the power I have as a prosecutor. I can just with the swipe of my pen lock you up for 2 weeks and then change my mind about it. That's the power that I have." I heard her saying that, and when I think about the way that
judge was a prosecutor,
this was when she was a prosecutor. That's what she was saying. I was listening to that interview and I was like, the callousness this lady has with locking people up without thinking about the repercussions that they could have in their life just because you feel a slight inconvenience. Now, I'm not saying that people can't get their courtroom under control and all that stuff. I'm speaking to the callousness of somebody just traumatizing somebody at they bequest just because they kind of felt like it. That kind of transpired in that's what I was correlating that to.
Yeah, I feel you on that. I understand where you're coming from on that. And you're absolutely right. Like, I don't like when people just abuse their power. I don't think this was necessarily that situation. I think this was a very real situation that can happen to anybody that was in that courtroom. A judge addresses you. Because now, if he just was like, "Hey, kick that chick out of she out there falling asleep in my room, put her in the back," I think that's different. But when you but he said, "Hey," he asked her twice not to fall asleep in there. And so what that tells me, if he said, I'm gonna dress you out, I'm gonna put you in the back, there have to have been a back and forth. We don't know what the back and forth is, but just
So you might be assuming it's a back and forth. What I was assuming happened, because we neither one of us know for sure. The way I viewed it happening was he kind of threatened her to get the respect he wanted, and because he didn't get the initial reaction, because if you wolf at somebody, you kind of gotta keep elevating it. Is how she got into the clothing, where she was like, "But I ain't even." Again, we just speculate.
So Marcus, are you saying that there's nothing that a 16-year-old could have said that we didn't hear that could have?
Absolutely, there's something. Absolutely, there's something. I just don't know what it was. I feel like if it would have been relevant enough, he would have spoke on it at least. I think for him saying I'm standing on what I did, I think he would have also added the context to why he was saying he's standing on it. Like, that young lady told me, "Fuck you, suck my SMD," all of this. So at that point, I decided to hold her in contempt or threaten to hold her in contempt. But he didn't say that. He just said, "I didn't like her attitude." That attitude could be anything. It could be she wasn't as responsive. She stayed quiet. She rolled her eyes. She did something that you know what I'm saying, an immature child would do, because they don't have a full.
Have you ever witnessed 16-year-old being nonchalant or disrespectful to an adult?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it safe to say there's some common examples or common phrases or things that they typically do that make you be like, okay, this is a badass little ass kid?
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
I mean, I know we don't know what it is, but I mean, since we don't know, I think it's safe to assume that she was probably doing some of those things.
The reason I want to assume it is because I feel it's my personal opinion, and I could be all the way wrong. I feel like he would have said that though, outside of just she wasn't respecting me the way I wanted to be respected. And there are people who I've seen this shit happen in conversation where they'll be having a perfectly normal conversation with somebody and then just get disrespectful and then be mad when you respond to it.
But
to me, he came off as somebody kind of like that, and I could be wrong. I don't know that man. I don't know enough of his story. I just feel like in this instance, he was extremely wrong, and it seemed like he was power tripping. Maybe he was going through something. And I had interactions with police, and they done the same thing, where they probably and they take that shit out on you, and no matter what you do, the shit wrong.
But when you think about it, he's a grown up to a little girl. Then he's a man to a little girl. Then he's a official to a little girl. Then he's a judge. It's so much power in there. It just wasn't that necessary.
What does that have to do with the person in China? Why does all those elements? Elements have to be played out for somebody being disrespectful in court?
If it's a woman and a man, right?
So if it was a young boy, we'd sit there and say, "Oh, it's okay for it." If it was a man that did that to the judge, then we'd say, "Yeah, put that nigga in the back."
It was a girl. What I'm trying to say is a little girl. The way she's saying it, from where she's coming from. He already has power. If he was not even a judge, he would.
Sweeney, she's on your side, Sweeney.
Oh, right, I am on your side.
I'm like, what is you arguing here?
No, but you got to understand it from the little girl's point of view. You see what I'm saying?
Go ahead.
That's all upbringing. I mean, the way you just did the precedence of what he is kind of justifies the behavior she could have potentially had towards the judge.
Because she's
peeling back the layer, saying that Percy's a man. I would argue that when you walk in the courtroom, the first thing, he's first a judge. I mean, he got a role, and then you kind of look at him as a man or a human being, and that's anybody who actually wear a uniform. I think the purpose is to try to appear. I don't want to use superhuman because I don't want to trigger nobody thinking that's like, oh, I'm better than you, but just wearing a uniform kind of puts a layer in front of, oh, I'm not just a man, I'm a judge, or I'm not just a man, I'm a soldier. You get what I'm saying? So I'm a soldier first, then I'm a man. Everything that I do and obligated to and vow to is the uniform first, and then my personal preferences or beliefs or behavior or whatever comes after that.
I think you're missing what I'm saying, because if you're a man, right, and a woman walks in a room, you don't feel intimidated. But if it's vice versa, a woman could feel intimidated if it's a man walking into a room.
Well,
Am
see,
I right, ladies?
you're right when you put it as a man, but whenever you put it as a judge, it's different. Because
But she's
if
a
you
little
put
girl.
if you classify him, if you give him his status, his title, then that changes things for a man and woman. Because if a man walk into a room with a judge, he's gonna be intimidated. It's not because he's a man; it's because he's a judge. If you just leave it at his title, then the intimidation should go across the board, whether you're a man or a woman. But when you take away his title, then now you can kind of play the little gender exercise or whatever you're trying to do.
I don't like to be dismissed, so I'm just gonna talk to like a human being. So what I'm trying to say is, when you with the whole judge thing, a 16-year-old doesn't get that. She doesn't understand the gravity of the situation. That's why it's kind of you taking advantage of the situation.
So isn't that a way to show her the gravity of the situation is to say, hey, look, being disrespectful in a courtroom, I'm going to show you the gravity of the situation you're in. When you disrespect
I think the problem
judge,
is because she was sleeping. If it was something like she stole some from a store, then it would merit that. But she just showed up as just a citizen, like a kid.
Why do we keep stopping at the sleeping part? Why don't we? Something else happened after that.
Too.
She went to sleep. He asked her to stay up. Then she disrespected him. It wasn't the sleeping part.
But that's the thing. With the disrespect is not clear. He cannot even defend himself.
Well,
he can just do all of that the power dynamic part. But he could say, "I'm gonna put you in this uniform." But he can't say what the little girl did.
He said she fell asleep twice, and he didn't like her attitude.
Yeah.
That was.
I don't know.
How about
I don't know how y'all.
The man still don't match
children,
me.
16-year-old.
But children are held accountable in courtrooms all the time.
It's not enough.
Children are held accountable in courtrooms all the time. Sometimes at that age, are tried as adults. So understood. As she did, as she did something.
He showed up.
So no, I dig that. I still believe he was a little bit over the top. I don't because that it's not his child, first of all, and he's not there to discipline him, so that's wrong. But we're making it seem as if children aren't supposed to be responsible at 16 years old. At that point, there is a failure as a parent for you to not understand the seriousness of a courtroom. My children absolutely know that and are younger than that young lady.
Yeah, I watched Law and Order at 16.
She should know. Children are held accountable all the time. Whatever when they get into trouble, they're not saying okay. And we understand that there is different punishment for children, but there still is some punishment. So I don't think that's a good reason to even use about her just not understanding the magnitude of the situation. You in a courtroom, they had to have briefed him at least a little bit. Still out of line. Still shouldn't have did all that. He should have kicked their ass out and left it at that. But we can't act like when you're 16. And in a lot of countries, that's the age of consent. Like there's countries that allow them to drink beer at that age. So it's like we really do our children a disservice by telling them they're not responsible or they're not liable for situations. Because when you're in the real world, a lot of people don't care if you're a kid. If they do something to disrespect somebody on the street, they're not going to care they're a kid. They're going to be treated as an adult. If they run by and push somebody or at any type of thing, there was kids running around with super soakers, hitting people with super soakers, and they were held accountable like they were adults. Some people took out real pistols and did them dirty. So what I'm saying is you have to teach children. Yeah, that was a real thing. They banned super soakers where we were at. So what I'm saying is it's a real thing. You have to prepare them for the real world and let them understand, like, hey, dig, you should know where you're going. I would have certainly briefed my children on it. If I'm signing a permission slip, I'm telling them how to conduct themselves in the court. And I'm actually doing my best to prepare that child for the day. And I understand they had special circumstances, but we can't behave as if they don't have tons of resources for children who are in school, right? I'm sure they had somewhere. They likely had somewhere to go. Even if you sleeping in the whip, whatever, you're gonna get good sleep in that damn whip. I'm gonna make it as comfortable as possible. Whatever it is that you have to do to make sure that this person is performing well. She's saying she's having enough sleep to have good grades. If she's having good grades, then she must be getting sufficient sleep to be able to perform like that. Because if you tired, you ain't getting good grades. That's real, Marcus. If you tired, you're not getting good grades.
Hell no, that's not true, bro. Like
I'm a-
college, most people they be getting like an hour of sleep a day. Cram, go take the test. Then come on,
Okay.
Well,
4
guess
years
what?
at Purdue. 4
Statistically,
years at Purdue, I partied.
statistically speaking,
Still got my
children
ass
who
up
don't
at
get
4
rest perform worse in school. Statistically.
Also, this is from the judge's mouth. He told reporters that he had ordered that the girl be handcuffed and put in uniform, not because she fell asleep, but rather because she had responded with attitude when he told her not to sleep in his courtroom. Now, I don't know what y'all look at as responding with attitude, but we know what when a kid responds with attitude, what that sound and looks like.
But this is
And
what we don't address this when how girls and women supposed to act. We always addressing how boys are supposed to be, but black girls don't know like how much your attitude can get you in trouble, and so we need to teach them that. And I think that before Haker, I think
How
that
come they don't know that?
the real problem is that she never gets checked at home, and now all of a sudden, like the judge is like the first person that she gotta deal with as an adult, because even if her mom was checking her, her mom would have some kind of accountability in her voice. She's like, oh my gosh, poor me. And you can just tell that this is her first time having to deal with consequences at all. So that's poor parenting on her end, I believe.
Now, I'm not gonna say she a great parent, but I can't write that because that mom seemed like the type of mom that probably cursed that girl out on the regular to keep it real. She don't seem like she missed words. I don't think that's what happened. But this is just me again. We all speculating, right?
Is there anything that she done to indicate that she might be should be mentioned in the same sentence as parent and great?
No, I'm not saying she a great parent.
I think everything she portrayed was a bad parent.
No, I'm not saying she's a good parent or a great parent or none of that. I'm speaking to when she said she probably never had no consequences, and I'm saying I believe that that's the type of mom that probably cursed her kid out. I don't think that's what she's doing. But the other point I was trying to make was that again, he only referenced the sleeping and did not give a tangible as to she could have just not been I've seen people who, when you don't answer a question specifically how they think you should answer it, they swear you're being disrespectful to them.
It's so subjective. Yeah.